They placed the divorce papers on her body while she was still bleeding. The nurse had barely finished laying the newborn into Anna Walker's trembling arms when the room shifted, the warmth evaporating, as if someone had opened a door to winter. Her son cried small and furious at the world, his skin flushed and perfect. Anna was exhausted beyond language, her body hollowed out by 14 hours of labor, her soul stretched thin but glowing. She lifted her eyes, expecting to meet her husband's expecting awe, gratitude, love. Instead, she saw Margaret Walker standing at the foot of the hospital bed, immaculate in pearl earrings and a tailored cashmere coat, holding a manila envelope like a weapon. Margaret did not smile. She did not look at the baby. She did not ask if Anna was alive. "Sign it," she said, and tossed the envelope onto Anna's legs. The papers slid against the thin hospital blanket, stopping just short of the newborn's tiny foot. Anna blinked, confused, her arms instinctively tightening around her son. "Margaret, I didn't know you were here." Margaret's lips curled. "I wouldn't miss this." Anna looked toward the window. Daniel stood there, back-turned hands, braced against the glass as if the city outside might swallow him whole. He wore the navy suit his mother favored, crisp, expensive, unwrinkled. He had not changed since the delivery. He had not held his child. "Daniel," Anna whispered, her voice raw. "What is this?" He did not turn around. Margaret stepped closer, heels clicking sharply on the linoleum. "The paternity test is pending," she said, her tone surgical, "but the divorce is non-negotiable. We are ending this before it becomes inconvenient." Anna's heart stumbled. She looked down at the envelope, then back at Daniel's rigid spine. "Divorce." The word scraped her throat. "I gave birth an hour ago. You held my hand. You told me you loved me." "That was adrenaline," Margaret cut in smoothly. "Do not confuse biology with permanence." Daniel finally turned. His face was pale, his eyes unfocused, as if he were watching himself drown from the shore. "I'm sorry, Anna. This is for the best, for the best." She echoed, disbelief blooming into something sharper. For who? Margaret laughed dry and humorless. "For the Walker family. You were a mistake, Anna. A phase. A waitress with ambition and no pedigree. We indulged Daniel's rebellion long enough." Anna felt heat surge through her chest, burning away the numbness. "I worked. I supported him. I managed his calendar. I rewrote his proposals. I built his life while he built nothing. And you were compensated," Margaret snapped. "A roof, clothes, a last name you never deserved." The words landed like slaps. The baby quieted, sensing the shift, his small fingers curling into Anna's hospital gown. Margaret continued, relentless. "Daniel is engaged to Olivia Brooks. The announcement will be public tomorrow. The merger depends on it. You will sign, take a modest settlement, and disappear quietly." Anna stared at Daniel. "You cheated on me." "It was business," he said weakly. "You wouldn't understand. The company is in debt, deep debt." Anna almost laughed. The sound caught in her throat and died there. Margaret leaned in, her perfume heavy, suffocating. $10,000, she whispered. "Enough for you to vanish. Refuse, and we will make sure the courts never let you near this child again." She produced a pen, gold-heavy, expensive. "Sign." Anna looked at her son, Ethan. His eyes were closed, his breath soft, unaware that his future was being negotiated over his body. She looked at Daniel one last time. "If you do this," she said quietly, "you will never see him again." Daniel hesitated. For a heartbeat, something human flickered across his face. Then Margaret straightened, her shadow falling over him, and whatever spine he had collapsed. "Just sign," he said. "Please." Anna closed her eyes. She breathed in her son's scent, milk and life and promise. When she opened them, the tears were gone. In their place was something cold and unyielding, something Daniel had never seen. "Give me the pen," she said. Margaret smiled in triumph. Anna signed without hesitation. Her name flowed across the page, steady, precise. "There," she said, handing the papers back. "Now get out." Margaret reached for the baby. Anna's voice dropped dangerous and low. "Touch him, and I will scream. Security will arrive in minutes. Until a judge says otherwise, he stays with me." For the first time, Margaret hesitated. She scoffed, masking it. "Enjoy your last few hours." The door closed behind them with a final hollow click. Anna lay back against the pillows, her body aching, her arms full. They thought they had discarded a powerless woman. They had no idea what they had just awakened. The room did not immediately feel empty after they left. It felt exposed, as if the walls themselves had learned something dangerous and were waiting to see what Anna Walker would do next. The machines hummed softly, indifferent witnesses to betrayal. In her arms, Ethan shifted his tiny weight, anchoring her to the present. Anna stared at the closed door, not with grief, but with a clarity that surprised even her. For 2 years she had practiced being small. She had lowered her voice, softened her opinions, learned how to smile without showing teeth. She had told herself it was love that choosing simplicity was brave. Tonight, that illusion cracked cleanly in half. Love did not arrive with contracts and threats. Love did not demand erasure. Anna reached for the phone on the bedside table, the one with the cracked screen and the fading case. It was the device Daniel knew, the harmless thing that held grocery lists and unanswered messages. She ignored it. Her other hand slipped into the hidden lining of the diaper bag at her feet, fingers brushing cold metal and smooth glass. She drew out a black satellite phone, sleek, and unmarked, a relic from a life she had folded away like a dangerous weapon. The screen lit instantly. No passcode, no hesitation. She dialed a number she knew by heart, one she had sworn she would never need again. It rang once. Anna, a male voice, answered, calm, precise. "I see your location. Congratulations on the birth." "Activate Phoenix," she said. Her voice was steady, stripped of all warmth. "The disguise is over." There was a pause, brief but reverent. "Understood," the voice replied. "Do you require extraction?" "Yes." "And bring the car." When the line went dead, Anna finally allowed herself to look down at her son. Ethan's face was impossibly small, his mouth forming a soft, instinctive curve. He had no idea that his arrival had ended one world and reignited another. She pressed her lips to his forehead, not in desperation, but in promise. She had inherited her first company at 22, a modest operation her father had built with stubborn brilliance. She had turned it into a holding empire through patience, silence, and timing. Power, she had learned, was most effective when underestimated. Going undercover had been an experiment, a hunger to know whether anyone could love her without the gravity of her name. Daniel had failed that test spectacularly. Footsteps approached in the hallway. A nurse peeked inside, eyes flicking to the door, then back to Anna. "Are you all right?" Anna smiled, soft and unreadable. "I will be." Rain began to fall outside, streaking the window with silver lines. The city blurred anonymous again. Somewhere below, engines moved, plans shifted, calls were being placed that would unravel balance sheets and shatter confidence. The Walker family believed they had executed a clean removal. They had mistaken restraint for weakness. Anna adjusted the blanket around Ethan, shielding him from a draft that no longer reached her. She was not afraid. Fear required uncertainty, and uncertainty had just left the room. What remained was intention. They had offered her $10,000 to disappear. They had assumed she would beg, bargain, break. Instead, they had signed their names to a war they could not see. She understood now that the hospital room was a threshold. On one side was the woman who had apologized for taking up space, who believed endurance was virtue. On the other was the woman who knew that survival required motion. Motherhood had not weakened her. It had clarified her priorities with brutal efficiency. Every future decision would pass through a single filter: did it protect the child sleeping against her heart? Outside, the rain intensified, drumming against the glass like applause or warning. Anna welcomed both. She had spent years mastering distance, allowing others to underestimate her resolve. That era was finished. The boardrooms would feel her absence first, then her return. Lawyers would speak her name carefully. Markets would adjust. Empires built on arrogance always cracked when confronted with patience and proof. Ethan stirred again, and Anna rocked him gently, already mapping exits, contingencies, outcomes. She did not need revenge to be loud. She needed it to be precise. A different future was already moving. The hospital moved quickly once Margaret Walker's influence reached administration. An hour after the door had closed behind her, 2 security guards appeared, their discomfort obvious in the way they avoided Anna's eyes. They spoke politely, almost apologetically, explaining that the room was no longer authorized, that payment had been withdrawn, that she needed to vacate the premises. Anna listened without argument. She had learned that resistance was wasted on people who did not own the decision. She dressed slowly, each movement deliberate despite the ache in her body. Gray sweatpants, an oversized hoodie, the clothes of someone meant to be forgettable. She wrapped Ethan tightly, protecting him from the cold efficiency of the corridor. Nurses watched her pass, whispers following in her wake. Someone had told a story, a convenient one, a surrogate gone rogue, a woman reaching above her station. Anna did not correct them. Truth traveled faster when it arrived on its own. The service exit was exactly as Margaret had intended. No canopy, no bench, just concrete rain and the illusion of humiliation. Anna stepped into the downpour and stopped beneath the narrow shelter of the doorway. Water soaked the hem of her pants. Ethan remained dry-cradled, closer body forming a barrier between him and the world. Across the parking lot, a silver sedan accelerated away, tires spraying water. Daniel did not look back. The sound came next. Low. Controlled. Wrong for the setting. Heads turned. Conversation stilled. Through the rain, a black luxury sedan moved with quiet authority, ignoring painted lanes and social expectations. It stopped directly in front of Anna, perfectly aligned, as if the city itself had made room. The door did not open immediately. Instead, the driver stepped out unfazed by the weather, holding an umbrella that looked engineered rather than purchased. Lucas Grant crossed the distance without haste. He stopped in front of Anna and inclined his head slightly, not as a servant, but as a man acknowledging command. "I apologize for the delay," he said. Traffic was inefficient. One of the security guards cleared his throat. "You can't park here?" Lucas turned his expression, cooling by degrees. "This hospital is owned by a trust under my client's management," he replied. "I suggest you step aside." The guard did. Lucas angled the umbrella, shielding Anna and the child completely. "Welcome back," he said quietly. The door opened, then revealing an interior of pale leather and muted light, insulated from the rain and the assumptions outside. Anna stepped inside without hesitation. The door closed, the world dimmed. The car moved smoothly, the city sliding past in reflections. Anna exhaled for the first time since the delivery. The seat adjusted automatically. Warmth seeped into her bones. Lucas watched her through the mirror, saying nothing, allowing silence to do its work. "They believed I would beg," Anna said at last. "They often do," Lucas replied. She looked down at Ethan, his breathing steady, untroubled. They think power announces itself. Lucas smiled faintly. Power prefers surprise. The car merged into traffic unremarkable, now invisible. Phones were already ringing elsewhere. Accounts were being reviewed. Meetings rescheduled. None of it touched the interior of the vehicle. Inside, the air was calm, insulated from consequence. Anna rested her head back, eyes closing briefly. Pain throbbed, but it no longer frightened her. She was moving. That was enough. "Where to?" Lucas asked. "For tonight," she said, opening her eyes somewhere quiet. "Tomorrow, we begin." The rain eased as they crossed the bridge, the city lights stretching ahead sharp and expectant. Anna adjusted the blanket around her son and allowed herself a small private smile. They had tried to erase her. Instead, they had escorted her back into herself. The Walker family would wake tomorrow to instability they could not name. For Anna, everything had finally aligned. Anna did not sleep that night. The city outside the windows of the quiet suite moved like a living organism, unaware that a slow recalibration had begun. Ethan slept against her chest, warm and impossibly light, while screens glowed softly across the room. Numbers replaced heartbeats. Balance sheets replaced fear. This was the language she understood best. Lucas stood by the window tablet in hand posture, relaxed but alert. "Walker real estate is worse than projected," he said. "They are leveraged across 3 institutions. Liquidity is dependent on a single pending merger." Anna did not look up. "With the Brooks family?" "Yes. $40 million in expected capital." Anna nodded once. "Who is underwriting their side?" Lucas hesitated, then smiled. "A private fund operating through layered entities. Vanguard Meridian." Anna's fingers stilled. The name hung in the air sharp with irony. "Our fund, 51% control," Lucas confirmed, quietly held. Anna exhaled, not in relief but in recognition. Fate had a sense of timing. She rose slowly, careful not to wake Ethan, and crossed the room. The city reflected in the glass fractured waiting. "They think money is loyalty," she said. "They think access is ownership." Lucas turned the tablet so she could see. Debt schedules, interest rates, hidden transfers. If we freeze the injection, they collapse within 72 hours. "Freeze it," Anna said. Lucas did not question. He never did when her tone reached that register. He began typing commands flowing through systems designed to obey without curiosity. Anna returned to the sofa, her mind moving faster than her body could. She saw Margaret Walker's confidence built on assumptions on the belief that power was inherited and permanent. She saw Daniel's weakness disguised as pragmatism. They had mistaken patience for absence. "What about custody?" Lucas asked. Anna's jaw tightened. "Prepare counter-filings. I want full legal and physical custody, not as leverage, as certainty, understood. And the estate," she continued, "by their primary mortgage." Lucas looked up. "That property has been in their family for generations. Then it will hurt," Anna said calmly, "which means it will be effective." The screens shifted as data refreshed. Somewhere across the city, an automated alert would soon land in an inbox, polite and devastating. Due diligence concerns, leadership instability, administrative hold, words that destroyed careers without raising voices. Anna looked down at Ethan, her thumb tracing the curve of his cheek. "They offered me $10,000. Lucas's mouth tightened. An insult. "No," Anna corrected softly. "A confession. They showed me exactly who they were." She closed her eyes, briefly remembering the hospital room, the cold weight of paper on her legs, the assumption that she would fold. Motherhood had not softened her edges. It had sharpened them into purpose. "Tomorrow," she said, "they will panic." Lucas nodded. Margaret will seek alternative financing. High interest? Predatory, letter Anna replied. Track it. I want to know who smells blood. Lucas's fingers moved again, shadows connecting across markets and firms. There's another matter, he said. The Brooks engagement announcement went live. Anna opened her eyes. A flicker of something passed through them. Not pain, not jealousy, but finality. He proposed today? Yes. Anna absorbed it without reaction. Then he has chosen his side. The city lights dimmed as clouds passed overhead. Anna shifted, adjusting Ethan's position, feeling his small breath steady against her. Every decision from this moment forward would be irreversible. She accepted that with a calm that surprised her. They think I am angry, she said. Lucas glanced at her. I am not, Anna continued. I am finished being invisible. She reached for the tablet and began scrolling herself, eyes scanning data at a pace that left no room for doubt. The woman they had dismissed was gone. In her place sat someone who understood systems, pressure points, and timing. Freeze the funds, she repeated. And prepare to buy. Lucas smiled, faint and dangerous. As you wish. Outside, the city continued unaware. Inside, the first move had already been made. The collapse did not arrive with drama at first. It came as silence. In a dining room, flooded with warm light and polished wood, Margaret Walker raised her glass to celebrate what she believed was inevitability. The engagement ring on Olivia Brooks's hand caught the chandelier, scattering light across the table like small promises. Daniel smiled when prompted. His movements rehearsed his attention, drifting to his phone between polite nods. They spoke of timing, of synergy, of the future, all of it resting on a transfer that had not yet arrived. When the alert finally buzzed against Margaret's crystal, she frowned, annoyed at the interruption, unaware that this single vibration marked the end of her authority. She read the subject line once, then again, her fingers tightening around the phone. Administrative hold. Indefinite. The room seemed to tilt. Olivia laughed nervously, assuming a joke until Margaret's face drained of color and the glass slipped from her hand, shattering against porcelain. Daniel stood too quickly, chair scraping back, words tumbling over each other as he demanded explanations no one could give. Payroll loomed. Banks waited. The future so confidently discussed moments before dissolved into panic. Margaret insisted it was a glitch, a misunderstanding, a delay that would be resolved with a phone call. The call went unanswered. Again and again. Across the table, Olivia's confidence hardened into calculation as she reminded them of conditions, of deadlines, of her father's patience wearing thin. Celebration curdled into accusation. Outside the estate, the night remained calm, indifferent to the unraveling inside. By morning, Margaret had pivoted from denial to survival. She sat in a glass office overlooking the city, facing men who smiled without warmth and quoted numbers without apology. The interest rate made her stomach twist, but pride forced her pen forward. $10 million wired instantly, the cost deferred to a future she still believed she controlled. She left the office breathing easier, convinced she had bought time. She did not know that the money vanished almost as soon as it arrived, consumed by debt she no longer owned, redirected with brutal efficiency. When she opened her account and saw the balance plunge into red, the sound she made was animal raw, stripped of language. Garnishment notice. Acquired debt. Sterling Holdings. The name landed like a verdict. Margaret recognized it immediately. Everyone in finance did. Power that did not posture. Predators that did not miss. She whispered the name as if it might answer back, as if this could still be negotiated. Daniel stared at the screen, understanding dawning too late that the ground beneath them had never been stable. The estate, the accounts, the legacy he had assumed would always exist were suddenly theoretical. Across the city, Anna watched the alerts roll in without expression. She held her son as the first domino fell, the second, the third, each one confirming what she had already known. Panic always followed entitlement. She did not celebrate, she adjusted. The foreclosure notice went out with precise language and generous timelines. 30 days. Enough to appear reasonable, enough to hurt. She imagined Margaret reading it, the disbelief, the rage, the slow realization that power had shifted irreversibly. Anna felt no satisfaction in the thought, only certainty. This was not vengeance. This was containment. The war had begun not with shouting or spectacle, but with quiet emails and automated systems doing exactly what they were designed to do. The Walker Empire was bleeding, and they did not yet understand where the wound was. The engagement party was meant to stabilize perception, a calculated performance staged beneath crystal chandeliers, and inherited confidence. Margaret Walker believed that if enough powerful people smiled in one room, reality would bend to match the image. The ballroom filled with financiers, donors, and old allies who spoke in hushed tones while scanning faces for signs of weakness. Daniel stood beside Olivia Brooks, his posture rigid, his smile lagging half a second behind expectation. Rumors had already begun to circulate, whispers slipping between champagne flutes, but Margaret trusted spectacle more than truth. She trusted that appearance could still outrun consequence. Then the doors opened. The shift in the room was immediate, instinctive, the way animals sense a larger presence entering their territory. Anna Walker stepped inside as if the space had been waiting for her, draped in deep crimson silk that caught the light without pleading for it. Her posture was unhurried, her gaze steady, and every movement carried intention. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. No one announced her arrival yet. It required no explanation. She did not belong to the narrative Margaret had prepared, and that alone made her dangerous. Anna did not pause to take in the room. She did not scan for Daniel. She walked forward with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed, the crowd parting without instruction. Olivia reacted first, indignation flaring into panic. She demanded security, demanded removal, demanded that someone restore the script. Anna stopped in front of her and smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, but with detached amusement. She explained calmly that she owned the venue, not rented. Owned. The statement landed like a dropped glass, fragile and irrevocable. Murmurs surged through the room. Faces recalculated. Alliances shifted in real time. Margaret's breath caught her mind, scrambling for context for a frame in which this made sense. It did not. Lucas Grant stepped forward, then his presence sharpening the moment. He introduced Anna with precision, each word stripping away the lies Margaret had constructed. Chairwoman, Chief Executive, Sterling Holdings. The name rippled outward. Recognition igniting fear and opportunity in equal measure. Daniel felt the blood drain from his face as understanding crashed over him. He had mistaken silence for simplicity, restraint for lack. He had been standing beside power without recognizing it. He moved toward Anna, desperation overriding pride, reaching for language that could bridge the gulf he had helped create. She did not give him the space. She did not raise her voice. She simply denied him relevance. When Anna spoke again, it was to Margaret. Her tone was level. Her words were surgical. She acknowledged the foreclosure notice. She wished her well during the transition. Nothing more, nothing less. The cruelty was in the restraint. Around them, the room dissolved. Investors stepped back. Phones came out. Commitments evaporated. Olivia's father studied Anna with open calculation, already reassessing his future, already retreating from the wreckage forming around the Walkers. He extended a hand. Anna declined it without apology. Association itself now carried consequence. Margaret stood frozen amid the glittering ruin of her performance, her authority stripped in front of the audience she had assembled to validate it. For the first time, she was not the architect of perception, but its casualty. Anna turned away before Margaret could speak. The end was not loud, it was indifferent. As Anna left, the party unraveled completely. Laughter collapsed into whispers. Music drowned beneath phones ringing with cancellations and exits. Daniel watched her go, the finality of it settling into his chest like a weight he could not dislodge. He had gambled on appearances and lost to substance. Outside, the city continued unaware of the social earthquake that had just shifted its elite landscape. Anna stepped into the waiting car, the door closing softly behind her, sealing off the noise, the regret, the questions that no longer mattered. She had not come to humiliate them, though humiliation was inevitable. She had come to reclaim narrative control, and in doing so she made it unmistakably clear that the woman they had dismissed had never been beneath them at all. The legal assault arrived quietly, wrapped in urgency and stamped with authority. Margaret Walker did not wait for reflection or recovery. Humiliation had sharpened her instincts into something feral, and by Monday morning she had filed an emergency motion for full custody, alleging instability, deception, and imminent danger. The document painted Anna as a drifter who had fled medical care, impersonated wealth, and kidnapped her own child. It was fiction, written with confidence, the kind meant to overwhelm before truth could catch up. The family court building smelled of paper and old resolve. Anna entered without spectacle, dressed in dark blue, composed her posture, calm. She did not bring Lucas to the table. She brought Eleanor Vance, a woman whose reputation preceded her like weather. Eleanor had spent decades dismantling lies that hid behind procedure. She listened more than she spoke, and when she spoke, rooms adjusted. Margaret sat behind Daniel, her face carved into certainty. Daniel avoided Anna's eyes. His shoulders slumped under the weight of decisions he had outsourced for too long. The attorney Margaret had hired leaned into aggression, his voice booming with accusations, his confidence built on the assumption that judges favored lineage over truth. He spoke of hotels as instability of silence, as guilt of money, as morality. Anna listened. She had learned that power did not need to interrupt. When it was Eleanor's turn, she did not raise her voice. She laid out a timeline with surgical calm. Anna had been evicted from the hospital hours after childbirth. Security logs confirmed it. Payment records traced the decision. The narrative shifted. The judge leaned forward. Context mattered. Margaret's attorney pivoted, pressing the housing argument. Hotels were transient. Children required permanence. He gestured toward the Walker estate as proof of stability. Margaret smiled, already rehearsing victory. Anna stood when asked to speak. Her voice was steady, unadorned. She stated that the hotel stay had been temporary, a matter of timing, not circumstance. That morning, she and her son had moved into their primary residence. The address landed like a dropped plate. 5th Avenue, penthouse, purchased outright. Cash. The courtroom recalibrated. Eleanor submitted documentation without flourish. Deeds, bank statements, trust verifications, independent audits, numbers that did not ask for belief. The judge scanned the pages, then paused, reading again. The silence stretched. Margaret shifted a flicker of unease, cracking her composure. The judge addressed Margaret's attorney with quiet gravity. The net worth disclosed was not marginal, it was extraordinary. The attempt to characterize Anna as dependent or unstable was not merely inaccurate, it was reckless. When the judge referenced the $10,000 offer attached to the divorce papers, Daniel flinched. The admission came unprompted. He had followed instructions. He had assumed authority absolved him. The ruling followed swiftly. Temporary sole custody to Anna, supervised visitation for Daniel. No contact for Margaret. The gavel's sound was final, the room exhaling in its wake. Margaret stood shouting corruption, insisting on conspiracies. She was removed before she could finish the sentence. Outside, cameras waited. A secret billionaire made for good headlines. Anna did not stop. She did not smile. She stepped into the vehicle and closed the door on the noise. Victory, she knew, often triggered desperation. The warning came sooner than expected. Marcus Thorne forced his way through the press, breathless, unpolished fear bleeding through his usual bravado. He spoke quickly, words tumbling over each other. Margaret had leveraged insurance, not on assets, on people, a policy taken out before birth. Key person coverage on an infant, $5 million contingent on tragedy, used as collateral for a loan sourced far from reputable streets. The air changed. This was no longer corporate warfare. This was predation. Anna felt the chill move through her, sharp and focused. Margaret had not wanted custody to nurture. She had wanted leverage to survive, and now, stripped of access and pride, she had nothing left to lose. Security protocols escalated instantly. Residences locked down. Details multiplied. Entry points hardened. Anna retreated to the penthouse, the city below stretching like a map of threats and routes. Safety was no longer an assumption. It was a strategy. The betrayal came with blood. Daniel arrived unannounced, disheveled eyes wild. He had been followed, threatened. Margaret was desperate, cornered by creditors who did not negotiate with patience. She had promised them a payout. She needed the child. The words tasted like poison as he spoke them. He had finally understood what his mother had become. The lights went out. The service elevator opened with a mechanical scream. Margaret entered armed, flanked by men whose faces held no allegiance. She did not look at Daniel. She looked at the nursery. The confrontation was chaos compressed into seconds. Shouting, movement. A gun raised. Daniel moved without thought, placing himself between mother and child. The shot cracked the air. He fell. Blood spread vivid against marble. Margaret froze, the weight of consequence finally piercing delusion. Sirens cut through the aftermath. Armed officers flooded the space. The weapon was kicked away, handcuffs closed. The dynasty ended not with ceremony but with restraint. 6 months later, the world was quieter. The estate had been sold, its past erased by light and renovation. Anna watched her son laugh in the garden, his steps uncertain but determined. Reports arrived on schedule. Markets stabilized. Letters came too. One from Daniel, written from a place far from privilege, spoke of work and regret and the slow construction of integrity. He did not ask for forgiveness. He asked to become worthy. Anna folded the letter and set it aside. Strength, she had learned, was not the absence of vulnerability. It was the refusal to surrender what mattered most. The war had ended where it began, not in wealth but in choice. The months after the confrontation did not unfold with fireworks or headlines, but with a quieter, more enduring weight. Justice, Anna learned, rarely arrived as a moment. It arrived as a process, slow and unglamorous, reshaping lives in ways that did not ask for applause. The penthouse settled into routine. Morning light, soft footsteps. The rhythm of a child discovering the world one careful step at a time. Ethan grew quickly, his laughter filling rooms that had once echoed with strategy and calculation. Anna watched him from the terrace, coffee cooling in her hand, as he reached for things that fascinated him without fear. Butterflies. Shadows. The edge of the garden where sunlight broke differently. In those moments, the war felt distant, like a storm that had passed but left the air cleaner. The corporate aftermath resolved itself with efficiency. Walker Real Estate was dismantled, its assets absorbed, its name fading from relevance. Margaret Walker stood trial for conspiracy, financial fraud, and endangerment. The courtroom stripped her of the mythology she had built around herself. There were no speeches, no final declarations, just facts, just consequences. She was sentenced without ceremony. The woman who had once ruled rooms now occupied a cell measured in steps. Daniel survived the gunshot, though recovery stripped him of illusions faster than pain ever could. He disappeared from the city after the trial, choosing distance over denial. Months later, a letter arrived from a rural address written in uneven handwriting, the words simple and unpolished. He spoke of work that left his hands blistered and his mind quiet, of days that demanded effort rather than entitlement. He did not ask to return. He did not ask for reconciliation. He asked only that Ethan be told the truth when the time came, that his father had failed him once and refused to fail him again. Anna read the letter twice, then folded it carefully. Forgiveness, she decided, was not an event. It was a boundary that shifted with honesty. She did not tear the letter up. She did not answer it either. Some paths required time to reveal whether they led anywhere worth following. Sterling Holdings moved forward, quieter than before. Anna delegated more trusted, deeper allowed systems to carry weight she once bore alone. Power, she had learned, did not require constant presence. It required alignment. She chose projects with intent focusing on infrastructure, on sustainability, on long timelines that outlived quarterly noise. Legacy, she believed, should be built to endure scrutiny, not applause. Motherhood reshaped her leadership in subtle ways. Meetings ended earlier. Decisions passed through a different filter. Risk was no longer theoretical. It had a name. It had a future. The board noticed the change, mistaking it at first for softness. They adjusted quickly when results followed. There were moments quiet and unexpected when memory surfaced without warning. The hospital room, the envelope, the sound of paper against skin. Anna allowed those memories space without letting them dictate the present. Survival had not hardened her. It had clarified her values with painful precision. Public fascination faded, as it always did. Another scandal replaced the last. Another narrative consumed attention. Anna welcomed anonymity where she could find it, choosing parks over galas, mornings over nights. The city remained her home, but it no longer defined her. She had learned to exist beyond its gaze. On a warm afternoon, Anna sat beside Ethan as he took his first unassisted steps across the terrace. He stumbled. He fell. He stood again, determined, unbothered by failure. She resisted the instinct to intervene, watching instead as he discovered balance through persistence. When he reached her arms raised in triumph, she lifted him, laughter breaking free in a way it rarely did anymore. That night, after he slept, Anna stood alone by the window, the city spread beneath her like a constellation of decisions. She thought of the woman she had been, the one who believed invisibility was safety. She thought of the cost of that belief. She would not teach her son to shrink in order to be loved. The world would test him, she knew. It tested everyone. But he would grow up knowing that worth was not assigned by lineage or approval. It was built, defended, chosen. Anna whispered a promise into the quiet room, not to the city, not to the past, but to the child sleeping behind her. She would teach him strength without cruelty, power without arrogance, resilience without bitterness. The story she understood now had never been about money. Wealth had simply exposed character faster. The true conflict had always been between entitlement and accountability, between fear and courage, between those who believed power excused them and those who understood that power demanded more. Margaret Walker had believed legacy was something inherited. Daniel had believed it could be borrowed. Anna had learned that legacy was built in moments no one applauded, in choices made when the outcome was uncertain and the cost was personal. As the city lights dimmed and dawn approached, Anna finally allowed herself to rest. Not because the world was safe, but because she had become capable. The future was unwritten, but it was no longer threatening. She closed the curtains, checked the nursery one last time, and turned away from the window. Tomorrow would bring decisions, challenges, responsibilities. Tonight it brought peace. And for the first time since the hospital room, that peace felt earned. Stories like Anna Walker's endure because they expose something fundamental about power that most people only learn through pain. From a professional standpoint, whether viewed through psychology, leadership theory, or crisis strategy, this story is not about wealth or revenge. It is about asymmetry. One side believed authority came from titles, family names, and social positioning. The other understood that real power comes from preparation, self-command, and the ability to act without emotional leakage. When pressure arrived, only one side had a structure strong enough to hold. What makes Anna's journey compelling is not that she won, but how she won. She did not react impulsively. She did not seek public approval or emotional closure. She identified the true objective: early safety, autonomy, and control over her future. Every decision followed that hierarchy. Experts often emphasize that resilience is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, methodical, and deeply intentional. Anna's transformation was not a rise in status, but a return to alignment with her own values. There is a broader lesson here that extends far beyond this story. Betrayal hurts most when it forces us to confront where we have been shrinking ourselves. Growth begins the moment we stop negotiating our worth to make others comfortable. Once that shift happens, relationships, systems, and even institutions reorganize around the new reality. Power does not need to intimidate when it is grounded in clarity. If this story changed the way you think about strength, self-respect, or rebuilding after betrayal, support the channel so we can continue bringing you narratives with depth and meaning. Like the video if it resonated with you. Subscribe if you want more stories that combine drama with insight into real human behavior and power dynamics. Before you go, leave a comment with just this short phrase: know your worth.